spent a lifetime creating this moment, and you try to take it away from me. I will take what is due.
Okay, here we are at last. Mother Miranda, the final character to cover for Resident Evil Village. This is a big one. There's a lot of information, a lot to take on board, and honestly, the amount of links that Miranda has to the overall series, to an extent, is ridiculous. So without any further delay, let's just get into it now. So first and foremost, Miranda is the leader of the village. She is the main villain of the game. Long time ago, her daughter unfortunately passed to the Spanish flu, which, as you could imagine as a parent, would probably just ruin you, and Miranda basically walked into a cave to die. And upon entering that cave, she came across what we know as the Megamycete. This is where the mold came from. This is how every event tied to 7 and 8 came to be. Miranda discovering this Megamycete. Fast forward a few years over time, she is obviously experimenting with the Cadeau, with the Megamycete on the villagers that we come across. Well, we may come across them as lichens, but they're still there. Obviously, those experiments didn't go to plan and turned all of those villagers that she experimented on into monsters. Further along the line, you have the Lords. The Lords are people who have honestly bonded with the Megamycete, the Cadeau, very, very well, but there is defects. Straight out the gate, Dimitrescu has a need for intake of any human blood, or her powers just kind of go out of check. Donna is completely mentally undeveloped, so she just does not have the capacity to kind of be good enough to really control it. Moreau, it honestly consumed him more than anyone else, and it's basically made him nothing. And then Heisenberg, while he did bond with the Cadeau very, very well, she did not entrust that he was the right vessel to bring back her daughter, so she didn't use him either. And she kept the Lords basically as her slaves, basically. Leaders of the village, yes, but pawns of her, basically. Over years and time, she'd countlessly tried to find the right person to bring back her daughter. The plan was that she would use the Megamycete, the parasite, all that kind of thing, to bring back her daughter. A little bit of kind of context is the Megamycete does record any DNA that it comes into contact with, and essentially, because of Miranda's kind of blood relation to her daughter, as well as the bond with the Megamycete and the parasite, she would be able to bring her daughter back through somebody else, basically. It's a lot more complex than that, but I'm trying to keep it simple so you can all understand kind of the idea behind it all. I'm sure there's many videos out there that go into more depth, but that is essentially the gist of what she's trying to do. Now this is where it all ties back to everything in the Resident Evil series. Eventually, there is a couple of hikers, so mountaineers, coming towards the village, and they get trapped and they're in trouble. And luckily, Miranda is able to save one of these people. And you may be wondering how that's relevant to anything, but just who was that person? Well, this honestly blew my mind when I read the note in the game, but this was actually Oswald E. Spencer. For anyone who doesn't actually know the name, he is the start of Umbrella. Like, he built Umbrella. His mansion is where you are literally playing throughout the entire first game. It is where everything started with him. Up until Village, at least, because apparently, in the end, it all started with Miranda. Over time, Miranda and Spencer did get very close. She was essentially his mentor in kind of all of this crazy science, we'll just call it that, for simple terms. And she taught him a lot of what he knows now, and his idea was to kind of use this power, use this science to do something on a more global scale. While Miranda was very personal with it, so she just wanted to bring her daughter back, nothing more. But Spencer wanted to really make this a big thing. So he did part ways with her, but not without taking something for himself. There was a symbol he noticed around the village quite regularly, and he really took a liking to it. And the symbol as we know it today is actually the Umbrella logo. He has basically built his company and learned everything he knows from Miranda. Like, Village has basically made everything come full circle through 7 and 8. It's all related now, which is absolutely incredible. It honestly blew my mind just how in depth they were planning to make Village to the rest of the storyline. Like, Miranda's kind of like the big bad, really, of the whole series now. Fast forward a long time now, and you are introducing the Connections into the fray. Now, the Connections is a small group of essentially black market dealers for bioweapons. They create their own bioweapons and sell them to the highest bidder, essentially. If you want more information on the Connections, I'll leave a link to a video I made a long time ago going over everything we know of them so far, but they are a big deal and a kind of side story at the moment, but hopefully they are brought to light a little bit more. But Miranda then joins the Connections and they try and help her bring back her daughter through their methods, and the outcome of that ends up being Evelyn. Well, yes, Evelyn did take the form of Miranda's daughter fairly accurately. There was a lot of side effects with Evelyn as a whole. She was telepathic, so she could kind of talk to people and make them do things they didn't want to do. She could basically infect their minds. On top of that, Evelyn did have rapid aging issues. Obviously in 7 there is the twist where Evelyn is actually the grandma in the house. She's like already really old. Whereas Miranda is, yes, affected with the Megamorph and the Cadeau and stuff like that. She ages fairly slowly. Like, Miranda's a couple hundred years old at this point. So, you know, not ideal. And it did go wrong. So the Connections basically kept her, and then the boat crashed in Louisiana, and then the events of 7 took place. And then we find out that Ethan did in fact die in Resident Evil 7, and is essentially, again, molded. But he is also really adapted to it. Like, he works really well with it. Fast forward a couple of years after that, Rose comes along, and again, because Ethan is kind of already dead and already molded, Rose is also part human, part mold, but it's not through infection, it's just through natural inheritance, I guess. Like, Ethan is that, so she's got part of that and part human as well. So she's like the perfect combination of the two, just through her own birth. So then obviously, Miranda does find out about Rose through means we're not 100% sure of yet, and abducts her by taking Mia's place in Ethan's house, which he doesn't know because one of Miranda's powers is that she can basically turn into anyone, as long as they're recorded on the Megamorph, which of course Mia was, because she was obviously infected with the mold and stuff like that throughout RE7. So she was able to infiltrate Ethan's house pretty easily, take Rose and get away. Unfortunately, Chris caught onto that and took her down, or attempted to take her down, which he thought worked, but unfortunately didn't. And then Miranda did escape the convoy escorting her body with Rose and make it back to the village, and then the events of the game take place. And that is essentially the backstory of Mother Miranda, how she got to where she is now from way back, from when she first really got involved with all of this stuff. Of course, there's a lot of extra information. For example, when the villagers first found out about Miranda and what she could do, they did worship her as a god. Obviously, she went off the deep end a bit, and instead of protecting these people and being a leader to them, she just used them in her own way to try and bring back her daughter. So a lot of her actions, a lot of her methods are very selfish. It is understandable to an extent. If there's an opportunity to bring your kid back who you lost very early on, you would want to do that. But the way she's going about doing it isn't great. I honestly think she'll probably be in the DLC quite prominently, depending on who the DLC is focused around. Mainly, if it's focused around the villagers, maybe we'll see Miranda and, follow her as she starts losing it a little bit and starts taking villagers for her own means. It's very interesting to have her involved in DLC, I would say. I think that's one small issue I have with Village. Village does have a lot of, well, not a lot of, but it has pretty big story plot holes every so often. But one thing aside from that does bug me a little bit is she's not really in the game much, really. Essentially she's the main villain of the game, right? But we only really see her once near the beginning, and then a fair chunk near the end, obviously the boss fight as well. She's not in it enough, I would say, to really gauge a feeling about this character. A lot of the information you need to know about her is through lore and files and stuff like that. So you don't really know much from the game other than that she took my daughter, so I'm going to go and get my daughter back. Obviously you discover things a little bit more near the end, but until that point, she's very much a mystery, which is interesting. But even so, the fact that she links to Oswald Spencer and Umbrella and stuff like that is really interesting. It's a nice addition to the game. It does make 7 and 8 feel a little bit more included, even though they are definitely canon. They are very much separate, in the sense that, there's no zombies, there's no T-Virus, no G-Virus, no Umbrella, anything like that. They are canon, and this is a good way to kind of add them into those games, as well as obviously Chris being there as well. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Miranda. Do you think she was a good main villain? I know some people really didn't like her as a main villain, but do you think she's good? Do you think she's bad? Do you think she'll be in DLC? Because we might not be done with her just yet. Will she return? Who knows? Maybe she survived. Obviously there is rumours floating, well not rumours, but more theories floating that Ethan is indeed alive. And I think I'll probably do a video on that later down the line, because, it's an interesting topic I would like to cover, and I really do like Ethan as a character. But yeah, that's essentially going to wrap it up with the village characters that I really want to go over. We've gone over the 4 lords, the Duke, and then Miranda herself. If there is anyone else you would want to see a video on in Village, do let me know. And I do want to start doing more of these type of videos across different games in the series for different characters. Just to throw a couple out there. The main characters are coming. They have a lot of backstory and a lot of history to go through. So those videos not only will take a long time to get done, but will genuinely be longer videos. But aside from the main cast, you've got characters like Hunk, you've got characters like Luis from RE4, Sherry, Ashley, all the side characters are interesting characters. Not all of them have a lot of depth, but there are a fair amount of them. So if there's any character you want to see in a video like this, do let me know. But yeah, that'll be the Village videos for the week. Thank you all for coming by and watching these videos. Hopefully they've been of interest and make a little bit of sense, and hopefully add a little bit more knowledge to you about certain characters. But yeah, that'll do for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.